What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Awaken Your Work Life. We've got Karyn back with us. Why? Because we've got the Great Resignation going on.
We
and
do.
woo, shit's a changing. And I'm the money chick, and I am here to remind you to click the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because we are going to continue to bring you great content and experts like Karyn in their fields because we either work things out or we act it out, and we do it through our money, through our health, or through our relationships. And that's our work life. Our work life is our money, is our health, and it's our relationships. It's like all of them in one is our work life.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Absolutely.
And Karyn, I asked you to come on today. We talked about this, that you always say to me, it's like a myth buster. It's like, it's not an either or, it's an and. And when this started popping up into my life again, I'm like, I got to get Karyn on here again. And we got to talk about this because it's really popping up for people lately in this Great Resignation.
Yeah, I think that I think I heard a number like 4 million people have resigned in like over the last, I don't know, maybe year or something. Like just
congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, what we know. Yeah, and what we know is that the time away from the in-office grind, I'm not saying that people weren't at home grinding. I'm just saying the in-office grind where you're like on this automatic track, right? Like you got to get up, you grab some coffee, you jump in the car, you jump on a train, you go to work. You're like, you just like on automatic pilot, right?
We're done.
And then, yeah, you're at home and you realize, look how much work I can get done. And dragon breath is not breathing down the back of my neck or, you know, annoying.
Or you don't have to deal with the coffee talk.
Yeah. An annoying person over there. And quite frankly, what we all knew was that, yeah, I actually only need about 4 hours, maybe 5 to get my like 8-hour workout life done. And quite frankly, if anybody says that they were not dropping personal time right into the middle of their work day at home, they're not telling the truth.
Sorry, did I just do that? I
did. It's true though, right? So come on, guys, let's just be real, right? You know, you were figuring out how you could grab lunch with a girlfriend, get back to your desk, you know, finish your memos or whatever your assignment was. Like, it works. It's possible. And people, I think, are realizing, yeah, I don't want to go back to the other way. In fact, I like working in my pajamas and a sweatshirt, or I like not having to, you know, get up and put high heels on every day.
Just make sure you know when your cam's on and when it's not.
Oh my God. Yeah, there's been a lot of bloopers that way, right?
Well, and this is where so many of us, you know, have done things for reasons outside of ourselves. And I always tell people, like, when you show up in the world more authentic, then more money actually shows up. Like, if you're plugging into the world in your work life and you're not actually speaking your truth and telling your boss what you like and dislike and blah, blah, because you're afraid to lose your job and all these other reasons, the money is going to fall away from you if you're not authentic. At some juncture, it's either going to fall away from you in a divorce. It's either going to fall away from you from, you know, that you don't get along with your boss because you're not being true because you're afraid of the consequences. And it's like, no, we need to now go step into our power and we need to now get on this program to going, you know, there's huge opportunity here with this Great Resignation and you don't have to negotiate yourself away. I think that's the biggest thing that I want everybody to walk away from.
Yeah, and I think that people are starting to recognize that. You know, they're saying to themselves, you know what? And I think that part of what this time has been about has been the opportunity to really evaluate, like, what's true for me?
Right.
Like, what is my truth?
Right.
And I like this. I don't particularly care for that. I want more of this, less of that, you know? And in the process, I think people are also looking for meaning. Like, so many of us had an opportunity in such an uncertain circumstance, though, to reconnect with people who we hadn't been connected to, not on a regular basis. And I think that whole idea of community, relationships, the quality of the relationships has taken priority for many, many, many of us over maybe some of the more um, what's the word I'm looking for? Monetary,
Well, the
aspects.
monetary, again, going back to the money part, is that the money actually shows up after the fact. You have to remember that that's your result.
Mhm.
And we've thought that the money was supposed to come first and foremost, and then have everything fall in alignment with that. And that's actually what causes your money to fall away. And you're
Yeah.
like, and it's almost like turning it on its head and saying, no, 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 in your work life. And let me give you an example. I have a person that works for me, and she came to me. It was actually before the pandemic, and she said, Jewel, I got to move to Florida. And I'm like, okay, like, what are you saying? Now, this is after somebody else had just decided that they were going to be getting married and moving to California. And I was like, oh man, like 2 and 3 weeks, brutal. And, but then I said, okay, so what's your thought? Like, I, as the employer, just said, well, what are you thinking? And thank God I said that, because she goes, well, I really still want to work here. And I go, so what do you see as a solution? She goes, would you let me work remotely? And I go, as long as you work. Like, that's literally what I said, where I go, as long as you work and you get the job done, and you're going to have to increase communications because you're not physically here, so people know what's going on. I said, as long as
Right.
we work those kinks out, I don't see any reason why in a million years that we couldn't do it. I had no idea 6 months later the whole country and world was going to be shut down, right? I had no idea that that was going to happen
Mhm.
6 to 8 months later. And so, what, you wouldn't believe how much more productive she is, which
Yeah.
has made the company more profitable, which has
Yep.
actually then turned around and put more money in her pocket. And I have tons of clients that this is reality for,
Yeah. And
because
it's
it's
really
not an either or, it's an and. You always
and
say that to me. It's an and.
yeah, I think that there's no wrong way, I call it your radical intersection. There's
You
no
do,
wrong
yeah.
way to look at the things that you want to bundle together.
Right.
Like, it's impossible for them not to come together.
Because it's
It's
you.
because it's you.
You can't. I keep telling people, like, um, you left your heart on the sidelines. Now you gotta get it back in here. Even like when it comes to people's investments, it's like, well, did you filter that investment decision through your heart and then add your smarts to it,
Mhm.
or did you just make a brainiac decision and said, okay, well, this guy's really smart and they told me to invest in it, and that's why I'm doing it? It's like,
Yep.
well, no, 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 that shouldn't be your reason why you invest or not invest in something. It needs to filter through your heart space. But we've all
Yeah.
left that on the sidelines, even when it
Yeah.
comes to the work that we've chosen to do in the world.
Yeah. And people forget, or maybe it's not that they've forgotten, maybe they don't realize where they've left their self-sovereignty,
Oh,
right? Like, I
yes.
say to
Great.
people, you know your whys, right? We've all heard that. Like, what's your why? But I say there's a step before the why,
Mm.
because your why may not even be yours. It may have been adopted, incepted,
Might have been
adapted,
your
you know,
spouses, your
yeah, yeah,
bosses, your
socialized
coworkers.
with
You're trying
parents,
to
like,
fit yourself into this square box when you're round and
correct.
voluptuous.
And that doesn't invalidate, the quality of it, right? It just is not yours.
Right.
Like, the people that are like, "Yeah, I went to law school." "Really? I don't wanna be a lawyer." "Why'd you go?"
Oh,
"I don't know." Or my
and you just
family, I come
spent
from a line of
200 grand.
lawyers or whatever. Like, this is what I'm talking about.
It's outside of yourself. It's not inside. It's outside.
It's not it's not yours,
Right.
right? It's
And
not
this
yours.
is that's why the subtitle of my first book, The Emotion Behind Money, is Build Your Wealth from the Inside Out.
Mhm.
And this is what I'm talking about. You have to start to say what's true for me, and have that be how you navigate your financial
Mhm.
decisions and your work
Mhm.
decisions and your family decisions. Like, we've done it the opposite way for generations, and it's time
Mhm.
to turn that around,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know?
It is absolutely time to do
So,
that.
so tell me about how you've been seeing people on the sacrificing front. Like, you were saying
Yeah, so
earlier that they
yeah, because
sacrifice their own needs.
I had mentioned to you what's been coming up for me is this idea around, sacrificing our own truth or
Mm,
our own needs in deference to other people,
right.
right? Like, and we tend to honor when people serve others, like put somebody else before yourself. And I'm not recommending that people become just totally hedonistic. But what I'm saying is we don't realize how damaging that is to us, to deny our truth, to deny our needs, to subjugate who we are, and then turn around and expect other people to put us first.
Well, and then we repeat the patterns that other people have done to us, right? And then when they don't put us first, then our not enough button is hit. We're not worthy. We're not good enough.
And we're angry. And so the thing is, like, what's your truth? And where in your life are you denying what you need in deference to someone else's needs? And sometimes we will decide, we will choose, as you, Julie, choose to, right?
Yes, you choose to
proceed anyway.
Right.
Like, I mean, if you're caring for a parent and it's wearing you down, you're not going to stop caring for them. But what you may need to do is see if there isn't a way to get some help, to buy yourself some time, to share the balance of that caregiving.
Right.
And so that's a big thing right now. And I think people are seeing it because the caregiving numbers are up. And I said I was going to try and find the stats on that. Something came out a couple days ago about the number of people who are classified as caregivers is up 50%. I don't know over what period of time, but just think about that. I mean, if you've got an elderly or a parent that's not well, or a spouse or a partner that's not well, or a child that's not well, or just who knows, whatever else you might be doing. You know, it's just it can take a lot out of you. And that's one of those places where it's like,
well, and I think people don't even recognize what their needs really are. So like, I remember when I was going through transition in my life where I was like, I didn't even know really what my heart wanted. And I didn't even know that I was actually not in alignment with my heart. It was just that what was happening, and I was getting these increase in heightened emotions. And so I'll talk to people about the fact that if you're having these increase in heightened emotions are just unmet needs. So I know that from my training and my knowledge and going, because I'm the expert in behavioral finance. And I'm like, well, what's my unmet need? So I'd be walking around the house going, what's my unmet need? What's my unmet need? And I realized I was the caregiver and provider for so many people. I was carrying them. And as an employer, as a sibling, as a daughter, as a spouse, I was carrying it all. I have a huge capacity to handle things. And it was the tell sign to me that I was actually not getting my needs met, but I was meeting everybody else's, was the fact that I was having these heightened emotions. So that's a real big tell sign that if you're not in alignment with your own needs. And so when it comes to like your employer, if you're sitting there like complaining about the people you work with, or your boss sucks, or you don't believe in the culture of your company, you have an unmet need. And so ask yourself, what are those unmet needs? And now write your new job description or job career opportunity that you want to manifest in your life to get you. And don't forget, particularly us ladies, when we make these lists of what we want and we desire, we always leave the numbers off of how much we should be compensated. It drives me bonkers. We're like just happy to be at the table. And so we just go, oh, is that what that's paying? Okay, I guess I can make that work. No, you decide what you're worth and you put the number to that. And that goes along with all of the needs and desires you have of how you want to interface with your boss, your coworkers, even if it means starting your new endeavor. I've had more people in this Great Resignation come to me and go, Jewel, I just had, let me give you an example. I have a female executive who was let go. She was the longest standing female in this large corporation in history for 2 years and 3 months. So there's no female that's made it longer on the
that was 2 years was the duration?
Longest. And she made it the longest. And she was like, and then they gave her papers. So like they hit the stats to make the numbers. But the hierarchy, it's very 1950s-ish run. And they let her go. And I kept shifting her to like, no, what's the opportunity? No, what's the opportunity? Like, this is not, because she's like, I'm going to bust him down. And I remember Deepak Chopra telling me how I've tried to go up the governmental channels. I've tried to go up the medical system. The powers that be don't want that to change.
Right.
So I'm just building it outside, and then the people will come. It's like the field of dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And this client started saying to me, I just wanted to knock it down. I wanted it. And it's like, maybe it's not your job to change that culture. Maybe it's just about you creating something really great over here and align with people who align with your authenticity and your truth.
Yeah.
And build that, because what we do as human beings is we repeat our trauma patterns from our childhood, and whatever that was. Every human being has had some kind of trauma or rejection before they're 7. And we tend to find employers and coworkers that tend to reinforce some of these patterns. And if we don't become aware of that,
spouses and partners and, people that do that. It's really interesting because there's one of my teachers used to say, your path protects you. And this also ties back to that, not but, and because, I was released from
I just wrote that down. I wrote, and
I was released from the company. And so if you can suspend your disbelief just for a minute and think of this idea of your path protecting you.
Yep.
Sometimes we're a little slow on the draw, and, the universe takes action to get us moving more along whatever our path is meant to be.
Right.
So she feels like, which she was literally released, but she was also released and she was being directed. And what she has to do at that point is really assess, what's my truth right now?
Oh, right.
What is the dream? What is the vision? What is the thing that I've been hiding from or ignoring or pushing away or not acknowledging? Because this space has been created, and apparently the time is now for me to move into that. So if you can take and hold the attitude that everything is happening for me, not
against you. Yes.
Right. And not
shifting
to me.
Shifting from victim consciousness to an abundant consciousness.
Yeah. And the whole thing becomes like, oh, interesting. Like, they just cut me loose. Huh.
I love the word interesting. Okay, can we talk about that? I'm so glad that you said that, because the way you get to this next place in your life is by staying in a state of neutrality. And there are a few words that really do that. So you just did that. You even sat back. I wish I had an arm to be able to, like when we say, it's like, oh, that's interesting. And another one is like, that raises some curiosity inside me. Like, I'm going to stay curious about that one. Curious.
Well, and the key with both of those words is an openness to possibility. Right?
Yes.
So like when you are curious, you're like, huh, well, I wonder. And when you say something like interesting, the curiosity is implicit. Right? It's kind of like, that's interesting. And it begs the question of, what's next? And so wonder, both of those words, are surrounded by receptivity. There's a natural receptivity. There's a natural openness. There's a natural sense of wonder. And that is always a higher vibration. That is always going to lead you to greater and better things. And the more you can practice, not rejecting things that are happening to you as like happening to you, but like, oh, you know what? That just happened. Well, interesting is my favorite word. I use it so
I
much.
Love it. Well, because we naturally have these. So when we're emotionally triggered, I always say that when you're triggered about something, that means something needs to shift inside of you. So if you're being triggered at work or about stuff with work, just know, like often we're like, it's that person. It's like, no, something needs to shift inside you. Because remember, we live in a holographic universe, meaning that whatever's going on in your inside actually is being mirrored to you on the outside. And if you don't believe me, just look up Greg Braden. He's got all the science behind it. The quantum physics, I always tell people, like, well, this is how our cell phones work. Like, it's the same thing. Like, it's the quantum field. And so when we're sitting in this place and it's like, how is that person mirroring that to me in my trigger, and I'm triggered? So what needs to shift inside of me? Well, when you have these emotions, just kind of go, interesting, unplugs my trigger in 5 seconds flat.
Yeah. And
5 seconds flat. I'm like going, that's interesting. I'm triggered right now because I'm even recognizing I'm triggered. So you move into a place of observation as opposed to reactor.
Yep.
You're in your trauma, you're in your shit when you are reacting.
Yep.
Instead of the observer.
The power to navigate your life with a lightness of being and with a higher quality is to recognize that, to your point, when you're triggered, is to say, that irritated me, but not to leave it there. And to your point, be a reactionary, but it's like, what about that? So it's what about that? Why am I irritated by that? And it's and the other way to think about it is these situations or experiences are delivered by a messenger, could be a person or a circumstance, right?
Right.
And at that point, you have to move the messenger. You forget about the messenger and you just focus on the message.
Totally.
I'm irritated. It's not that I'm irritated by Jacob, or
but
I'm
observe the
irritated by
irritation.
work, but it's like, I'm irritated right now. And why am I irritated? And what do I need to, because whatever that situation, that person triggered us, what do I need to close the gap that let that in?
Totally. Right. Exactly.
What do I need?
Totally.
And when you even it's so powerful to say to yourself, what do I need right now? That's like a golden question.
I'm telling you, you just have to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when, like, I was getting angry, and I know anger is just all about sadness. And so I kept asking myself, what am I sad about? What am I sad about? And so I just started, like, all of a sudden, what it allowed it to do is, I don't even know what the feelings were, but one day I just had a good cry, because these unprocessed emotions are actually just in our bodies, and then just they build up.
Yeah.
Otherwise they create disease. So we got to move them, or they create disease. And who would have thunk that all this stuff is woven into our work life?
Well, here's the thing, right? You don't leave who you are at the door when you start your day at your desk. Right. You haven't changed who you are.
Right. That so you're the same no matter where you are.
You have the same needs. You know, whatever motivates you hasn't changed. Whatever makes you feel great about the job you're doing hasn't changed. You know, it's classic. What's the guy's name? Not Gray. Gary. No. 5 Love Languages guy.
Oh, I know exactly. I don't know who the author is.
I can't remember his name now. That's terrible. But
I'll look it up.
It's the same idea, which is what I need to feel great about myself. Those things, whether it's an affirmation or, you know, a service, or somebody showing up and doing something for me, or if it's the quality of the time we spend together, whatever.
Gary Chapman.
See, I was close. I knew I was getting pieces. That doesn't change when you go to work. So if you need affirmations in your personal life, you're going to need affirmations at work.
Yeah, that's true.
So what you have to figure out is, like, what is it that I need in this situation?
And also ask yourself in your work life, going, I always say that you can, if you have unmet needs and then you're let go or you start another job, if you don't recognize what those needs are and those triggers, you're going to attract different faces and different names. No different than if you're married once, you're going to marry the same bird again if you don't face your stuff, right? It happens in your work life as well. You're going to have that boss, like this person I told you about earlier. The CEO of the company was exactly the personality of her father. Exactly. So she had unresolved stuff about her dad. And then she tries to negotiate how she was leaving. And I said, do you want to fight with a narcissist? She goes, no. And I go, well, then stop trying to fight with your dad, because you never win with a narcissist.
Yeah.
Take your money and go and find your freedom, because more money will come. They're trying to chop you off the knees because a narcissist wants to stay in control.
Yeah.
And it's a never ending battle. And so when she could recognize that bridge from her personal world to her work life, And now she's rebuilding. And I'm like, give me the list of all the people that you know, all the things that you want to attract in your life as opposed to what you don't want to. So that way you're rebuilding, you're shifting your insides. So if you have a different response system, because she was just trying to prove to dad that she was good and she's enough. And I'm like,
yeah, she was trapped in
fuel.
an old behavior and adaptation.
Yep.
And not a new one. And in the moment, it feels like you're accomplishing something. And then you look up, and this is what I'm saying. Like, people are experiencing these lessons. I mean, I hate to sound so trite, right? But it's really like
soul lessons.
Yeah. And you think you've moved on. And if you, to your point, if you haven't tried to close the gap or really stop to be reflective of like, why am I feeling triggered right now? Like, what is it about this situation? If you don't practice that, you're going to keep repeating the pattern. And the thing is that they escalate, right?
Yeah.
The
So Karyn, help me out with this one. Help me out with this one. So let's look at the and equation that you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what part of the and equation do you think that most people have already figured out? I'd love to hear your perspective of that, and then I'll give you my perspective of that.
I don't know. It's an interesting question that you pose because
I didn't give it to you beforehand.
No, I don't know. I think people think of, I don't think they think really of and. I think that but
so and is two sides. So what's the side do you think? Because what I'd like for people to see is like the side that they have actually already figured out. Because not everything needs to be thrown in the trash and redesigned.
Right.
Right. So this is about the fact that we have figured some things out along the way.
I think that to a certain extent, well, this is going to sound bizarre. I think people
How bizarre.
Really start to know what they don't like. So it's kind of like this and this and this. I know I don't want any more of that, or I know I don't like that. And I think I would like this, but I'm not sure, you know? And so I think that one of the things that unfortunately we have we seem to learn and then decide our point of view and our filters a lot based on the negative things, if you will, that seem to have happened in our lives.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm never going to let that happen to me again. And I'm never going to let that, it's like, I don't like that. I don't like that. And I want to make sure that this, and I also think that, I don't know. I'm curious.
So if I can add, so science actually has proven that it's 4 times as hard to get rid of the negative thoughts and the negative triggers than it is the positive ones. So this is why that whole phrase of misery loves company, right? So it's just something to be aware of. I think some of the and stuff that people found out, like people usually go to work not only for a paycheck. I think some of the things that has happened as we've had, and you mentioned this earlier too, is that there's been increasing demands on the work front. That didn't just happen. That's been happening over the last 10 years.
Yeah,
so
longer.
I think people have been getting clear. I think some of the and is that you're getting clearer and clearer and clearer what aspects of the work you do that you really like, because the stuff that you haven't been focusing on and not doing are the things that you really don't actually like.
Right.
Right. So you've kind of figured out some of the things that you do like. So it's about building upon those things that you know are going right, to your point of like, what are the things going right? What are the job aspects that you really love? Oh, that's a good one.
So sorry. I thought oh, you know what? I did turn it off, but alarms break through.
It's all perfect.
So.
And so there's the and part is the fact that I think the and is we need to filter things more through the heart. Again, people feel like if they switch. So what I've learned in the money front is that people have pigeonholed themselves into a lifestyle. So now they're the providers of their families, or they're working hard and they don't want to. Most people don't want to disappoint other people. Like, most people want to do right by the person who's sitting next to them. You know, we may get in our stuff once in a while, but genuinely underneath people's traumas and their forms of rejection that have hardwired into their subconscious mind. Most people are very decent human beings, and we really actually want to do right by the people around us. And the thing is that I found that, so how do we start to take that part of you that likes to serve and likes to help? Like, if time is flying by, what in your work life are you doing that the time just flies by when you're doing those functions? That's when I always tell people, like, this is the part that's filtering already through your heart, because the time's flying by. The stuff that seems like drudgery is the stuff that you have to figure out on some level. The and is, you can't drop those things and keep your paycheck. Like, a lot of times people feel like if they do what's in alignment with their heart, they can't be paid the same way.
Right.
And so the and is, yes, you can be paid the exact same way. And no different than, like, my employee wanted to move to Florida. Okay, let's figure out how. I am an employer that thinks out of the box.
Yeah, and part of that is being willing. I'm coming back to look at your truth. Like, if you don't look at it,
right,
if you're not willing to look at it, it's unlikely you're going to navigate towards it.
Right.
And so what you're saying is, and I always invite people to do this, I'm like, build your perfect scenario from the bottom up, like zero-based accounting, right? You start down here and you just keep adding the layers, and it's okay to be audacious. Nobody's going to see your notes, only you, right? Like, you can be audacious.
That's
like,
so true.
I want to work from home, like, 3 days a week or 4 days a week, go in the office 1 day a week. I want to be able to leave at 3 o'clock, whatever. But here's the thing. If you don't look at it, if you don't get it out of your system, because it's in there.
Right. It's in there
already.
It's definitely in there.
If you don't get it out and look at it and start to think about how this could be, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get there magically. Right? Like,
no, it's not going to come out of thin air. You have to do practical action steps.
Yeah. And we have to be conscious of, like, not just letting it sit in our unconscious or you know, just like where it's just festering. Like, look at it, because you can't take action and move towards it if you haven't named it, if you haven't seen it in some way. And so you move, or you take the pieces, you decide what on that list is a deal breaker and what could be negotiated, and what, if anything, you need right now, you know, based on circumstance. Like, I need a job, or I need a situation that's going to allow me to, like, work from home a couple of days because I need to be accessible at home, you know, whatever. The key is to look at it. Most people it hasn't crossed their minds to make a list of what my perfect work life. Now, maybe that's because it would depress them to look at that list because they think there's no way to get there. But we are here to tell you there's a possibility.
You can.
There's a way to possibly get there, but you got to look at it first.
You absolutely have to look at it. Like, it was funny in the pandemic, you know, I watched so many people, you know, a lot of people when the lockdown and everything. It was so funny. I chose from a work perspective going, this is the most space I've ever had. I have 4 children, and I'm like, clients aren't expecting to meet me at the office. So I went and worked from Sedona, Arizona.
Right.
Whenever I had 5 days off, because that's my parenting schedule. I have 5 days on, 5 days off, 2 days on. So whenever I had that 5 days, it was like,
you could get up and go.
I get up and go and just do it from wherever. And so I went to states that were more open so that I felt like life was more normal. But you know, there's lots of different ways that you can unpack this. I think about the million nurses that have left, you know, their jobs, and I can't really like fault them. Whatever, they chose that. But can you imagine what the innovation and creativity is going to come out of that? It's not that those nurses all want to stop doing healthcare. So what kind of stuff's going to pop up in 5 to 10 years from now?
I know.
Oh, the innovation and creativity is going to be amazing.
Well, and it's because we've been forced to look at our truth.
Totally.
Like, so long as society was just going along like normal, we were all on a hamster wheel. And when things disrupted, it put a crack in that possibility space. It's like, oh, you know what? I kind of like this. I hadn't really thought about this before. Or like, and so people started to really think about what the possibilities might be.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right about innovation. We have had some amazing, first of all, it forced technology forward. Like people who had been resisting had
No
no
way around
choice.
it. Mm-hmm.
Had no choice. And also to some really creative, I think really responsible ways of, I mean, digital helps reduce paper use, you
Oh,
know,
right. Yeah, the
and
ripple
that's a more
effect. Right.
sustainable kind of
Yep.
point of view. It expanded markets for people.
Totally.
Suddenly, like they were offering things and they thought to like offer beyond their locale, just like it was
Totally.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, and Karyn, I put the link here so that you have something going on right now where they can get your ebook and your audiobook and your workbook together. So
Yeah, all
I've
for a
put the
special
link there.
price. It's $4.95, believe it or not, and
Yep.
the link there is case sensitive. So
Yes. So
if
make sure you
people
pay
type
attention to
it
that.
in
Mhm.
manually, please be sensitive to the upper and lower cases. But otherwise, go get it. It's there. It's
Yeah,
waiting
and
for
then
you.
also we've got your Beyond Blind Spots here underneath your name because you have been an amazing coach for me throughout the years, and I wanted to share you with the world. And for myself also, I'm giving away my book for free. You just have to pay for shipping. That's how we're going to collaborate on this. And awakenyourwealthbook.com. And again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because we are going to keep coming out with some great content.
Get
And
in there. Julie's amazing. And we're so glad you could join us. Come back. Come back.
thanks, everybody. We'll see you
Bye.
soon. Bye.